You've been doing everything right. You filed your initial claim, you went to your C&P exam, you got your rating, and somewhere along the way, nobody, not your VSO, not the VA, not anyone told you about a single form that could fundamentally change the number on that letter. I've helped hundreds of veterans, and I can tell you with complete confidence that this is the most consistently overlooked piece of the entire VA claims process. Let's talk about VA Form 21-4142 and its companion, the 21-4142A. Now, before you click away thinking this is some boring paperwork breakdown, stay with me, because what I'm about to explain could legitimately mean the difference between a 30% rating and a 60% rating. That is not an exaggeration. That is not clickbait math. This is what happens in the real world when veterans use this form correctly versus when they don't even know it exists. Here's the core problem. The VA rating system runs on evidence. It doesn't run on how bad you feel. It doesn't run on what you've been through. It runs on documentation. And most veterans assume that the VA is out there tracking down their records, chasing down their private doctor, calling their civilian hospital, and building this airtight case on their behalf. I hate to be the one to tell you this, but that is not what's happening. The VA will request your military service records. That part, yes. But your private medical records, your outside treatment history, the notes from the doctor you've been seeing for the last 8 years, who knows your condition better than anyone? None of that gets pulled automatically. None of it. And here is where the rating gap lives. Think about what a C&P examiner actually has in front of them when they see you. They have your service records. They have whatever you've submitted. And they have about 45 minutes to evaluate a condition that may have been affecting your life for decades. If the only documentation in your file comes from military sources and a brief post-service snapshot, that examiner is working with an incomplete picture. Not because they don't care, because the full picture simply wasn't there to see. Form 21-4142 is the authorization to disclose information to the Department of Veterans Affairs. What it does is give the VA legal permission to go out and request your private medical records directly from outside providers. You list the provider, the facility, the dates of treatment, and the condition being treated, and then the VA contacts those providers on your behalf and pulls those records into your claim file. Simple, straightforward, completely underutilized. And if you realize your claim might be missing key medical evidence, don't stress. ReMedical connects veterans like you with licensed medical professionals who provide the detailed medical evaluations VA raters actually look for to help strengthen their VA claim. Click the link in the description box below to get started. It's the same starting point I started for myself, and I recommend for anyone serious about getting their VA claim approved. Now here's where veterans make the first critical mistake. They either don't file this form at all, or they file it listing one provider, maybe their current primary care doctor, and call it a day. You need to think bigger than that. Think about every single place you've received treatment related to your service-connected or potentially service-connected conditions. The urgent care visit 3 years ago, the chiropractor you saw after your back gave out, the emergency room trip, the specialist referral that happened outside the VA system, the mental health counselor you saw privately before you started using VA mental health services. All of it. Every single one of those records could contain clinical language that directly supports a higher rating, and right now, none of it is in your file. Let me explain the rating math here, because this is where it gets real. VA ratings are assigned based on specific diagnostic codes that correspond to symptom severity levels. For most conditions, there's a 10% rating, a 30% rating, a 50% rating, and so on. The jump from one level to the next is determined by documented symptoms that meet certain criteria. Here's the thing nobody tells you. One well-documented private medical record describing a bad week, a flare-up, a period of significant functional impairment can be the evidence that pushes you from one rating tier to the next. Private doctors often write more detailed notes than what ends up in VA records because they're not working under the same system pressures. A good private physician note that describes how your condition actually limits your daily functioning is gold in a VA claim file. And if you want personalized help understanding your VA benefits and more, join our private community, Veteran Benefits Blueprint. It's where I break everything down even more step by step, answer questions directly, and give you more knowledge and tools that have helped thousands of veterans get all the benefits they've earned. The link is in the description box below. I'd love to see you inside. Now let's talk about the 21-4142A, which is the general release for medical provider information. This one is for situations where your treatment was a one-time thing or you don't have ongoing records with a specific facility. It functions similarly, but gives you the flexibility to capture those individual encounters that fall outside a regular treatment relationship. Use both. File them together. Cover all your bases. The second major mistake veterans make is assuming that because they already have a rating, this form no longer applies to them. Wrong. If you have an existing rating and you believe it should be higher, you can file a supplemental claim and attach a completed 21-4142 to it. The whole point of a supplemental claim is that you're bringing new and relevant evidence to the table. New evidence doesn't only mean something that happened recently. It means evidence the VA hasn't seen before. If you've been seeing a private provider for years and those records have never been part of your VA file, that is new evidence. That is exactly what a supplemental claim is designed to address. Let me give you a real scenario so this lands the way it should. Say you have a knee condition rated at 10%. You have been dealing with this for years. It affects your ability to work, it affects your sleep, it affects how you move through your day, but the only documentation the VA has is a brief note from your original C&P exam that captured you on a relatively stable day. Meanwhile, your orthopedic surgeon outside the VA has 2 years of visit notes describing range of motion limitations, pain flares, functional restrictions, and a recommendation that you limit prolonged standing and walking. None of that is in your file. A 21-4142 gets that documentation requested and added. Now your C&P examiner or your rater has the complete picture. That 10% suddenly has a real case for being a 30%. Here's another angle that most veterans completely miss. The 21-4142 isn't only useful for physical conditions. Mental health claims are often underrated because the documentation is thin. Private therapy records, psychiatric evaluations from outside providers, records from community mental health centers, all of that can be authorized for release using this form. If you've ever sought mental health treatment outside the VA for a condition you believe is connected to your service, those records can significantly strengthen the documented severity of your condition. Veterans with PTSD, depression, anxiety, and similar conditions consistently have some of the most underrated claims in the entire system, and it's frequently a documentation problem more than anything else. And if you're ready to finally take control of your VA claim, stop getting denied, or you're tired of waiting years for a VA claim decision, click the ReMedical link in the description box below. They'll walk you through how to get the proper medical evidence and documentation for your claim. Don't leave benefits on the table. Take that next step today. It's the same starting point I started for myself, and I recommend for anyone serious about getting their VA claim approved. Now, I want to be direct with you about something. Filing this form is not a guaranteed path to a higher rating. I'm not going to sit here and promise you an outcome. What I am telling you is that you cannot get credit for evidence that doesn't exist in your file. The form is the mechanism. The records are the substance. Together, they give you a fighting chance to be evaluated on the full reality of your condition rather than a partial snapshot. What you should do right now is this. Pull up VA Form 21-4142 on the VA website. It's a free download, straightforward to fill out. Start writing down every private provider, every outside facility, every non-VA doctor or clinic you've seen for your service-connected conditions. Go back as far as you can remember. Include mental health providers. Include physical therapists. Include specialists. Fill out the form completely for each provider. If you're filing a new claim, submit this with your initial filing. If you have an existing rating you want to challenge, file a supplemental claim and attach the 21-4142, along with your explanation of why you believe a higher rating is warranted. The veterans who navigate this system successfully are not necessarily the ones with the worst injuries. They are the ones with the most complete files. That is the uncomfortable truth about VA claims. You deserve to be rated accurately, not rated based on a partial file that never captured what your life actually looks like. This form is one of the most direct ways to close that gap. You've earned every benefit you're entitled to. Don't leave evidence sitting in a private doctor's office that could change everything. File the form. Request the records. Build the complete picture. That is how you make the VA's job easy and your outcome fair. If this gave you something useful today, share it with another veteran who's been frustrated with their rating. They might be one form away from a completely different outcome. Thank you for watching. If you found this information valuable and want to stay updated on all things related to veterans, subscribe to our channel. By hitting that subscribe button, you'll be the first to know about future updates and in-depth analyses that can help you navigate the complexities of veteran benefits and services.